What if I told you the watch your dad saved 5 years to buy is now the watch a 23-year-old walks past to buy something else? Rolex spent 60 years building the ultimate status symbol, and the generation with the most spending power to inherit that status symbol is looking at it and saying no thanks. Rolex's own resale numbers are sliding. Its little sister brand is outselling expectations, and the people driving the shift aren't collectors in their 50s. They're 20-somethings with a phone camera and zero loyalty to a crown logo. Is Rolex's grip on the one watch that matters already broken? Let me hit you with the numbers, because this isn't a vibe, it's a market correction. Morgan Stanley's own secondary market tracking showed Rolex's value retention on the resale market falling to around 6.7% heading into 2026, down several points from just a few months earlier. That means a Rolex is barely selling for more than its sticker price anymore, and on plenty of references, it's selling for less. Compare that to Patek Philippe, which is still commanding a resale premium north of 10%. The Bloomberg Subdial index, which tracks the 50 most traded watches by value, has been dragged down repeatedly by Rolex and Tudor, underperforming against Cartier and Omega. And the segment that's actually been growing this whole time is the sub-$7,500 entry-level bracket, which has consistently outperformed the flagship Swiss sports watch category. Then there's who's buying. Second-hand watch platforms are reporting that buyers under 30 now make up close to a third of their total transactions, and according to industry data, that age group is spending the most per purchase of any cohort on the platform. That's not a generation priced out of the hobby. That's a generation actively spending, just not necessarily on the brand that used to be the default answer. Here's the first section, and I'm calling it the quiet luxury game. For decades, Rolex was the answer to what watch should I buy, because it did one job better than anyone. It signaled money to a room full of strangers without you saying a word. A submariner on a wrist in a boardroom said something. That was the entire pitch. Gen Z doesn't shop for status the same way. Multiple industry reports on younger buyers point to the same pattern. This generation prioritizes individuality, design storytelling, and pieces that feel personal over a name everyone in the room already recognizes. A watch that 1,000 other guys in finance are also wearing doesn't read as exclusive anymore. It reads as generic. When status is that legible, it stops being status. It becomes a uniform. That's part of why Cartier has quietly become one of the most requested brands among younger buyers at several boutique retailers. The Tank and the Santos aren't chasing the loudest logo in the room strategy. They're chasing a design silhouette that's instantly recognizable without needing a resale flip or an 18-month waitlist to prove it's worth wanting. Second section, the micro-brand invasion, and this one should genuinely worry the big Swiss houses. Independent watchmakers building small-batch design-forward pieces have exploded in visibility over the last few years, largely because Instagram and YouTube let a two-person operation reach the same audience as a legacy manufacturer with a 100-year history. Brands built around distinctive case shapes, unusual dial materials, and limited drops are routinely selling out fast, at price points a fraction of an entry-level Rolex. The appeal isn't just price, it's story. A micro-brand founder posting the actual process of designing a case, sourcing a movement, and shipping the first 100 units gives a buyer something Rolex's marketing department, for all its polish, structurally cannot: transparency. Younger buyers say repeatedly that they discover watch brands through social platforms and creators, not through a boutique visit or a print ad. When the Discovery Channel changes, the brands that win the Discovery Channel change with it. Third section, the math problem, and this is where it gets uncomfortable for Rolex specifically. A steel submariner now retails in the neighborhood of $7,400 after the brand's latest round of price increases. A 2 to 3-year-old example of that exact same watch, barely worn, is trading on the secondary market for roughly $6,200 to $6,800. Do that math as a 25-year-old with a finite amount of disposable income, and buying new stops making sense. You're paying a premium for a box and a warranty card on a watch you can get gently used for less from a brand that isn't scarce anymore. That's the trap Rolex built for itself. The brand spent years cultivating the idea that you couldn't just walk in and buy one, that the wait list and the hype were part of the value. But once secondary market inventory started outpacing demand, the scarcity story stopped matching the actual math. And Gen Z, a generation that grew up comparison shopping everything from sneakers to concert tickets on resale apps, is exceptionally good at noticing when the math doesn't check out. Rolex isn't the only one feeling it either. Even Tudor, its own sister brand built partly to court younger buyers, has seen resale softness alongside it. Fourth section, the Tudor pivot, and this is Rolex's own family turning into competition. Tudor is owned by the same parent company as Rolex, built with a chunk of shared DNA, and priced to be the get-in-the-door brand for exactly the buyer Rolex is losing. Servicing a Tudor typically runs $400 to $600, compared to $800 to $1,200 at an authorized Rolex center. And Tudor has spent the last decade doing the thing Rolex historically refused to, leaning into younger, culture-facing marketing, collaborations, and a design language that doesn't feel like it's trying to look 40 years older than the person wearing it. The irony is sharp. Rolex's own corporate strategy to protect its flagship brand's exclusivity by keeping supply tight may have pushed an entire generation of new luxury watch buyers straight into the arms of its cheaper sibling instead. Fifth section, the value story flipped, and this is the part that should really keep Rolex's marketing team up at night. For most of the last 20 years, Rolex's hold their value was treated as gospel, repeated in every buying guide and every forum thread. That story is now measurably less true. Meanwhile, alternative brands, some independents, some legacy houses like Cartier and Omega, have been posting comparatively steadier or even improving resale performance in the same window Rolex has been sliding. When the "it's an investment" pitch weakens, you're left selling the watch on pure desirability. And desirability is exactly the metric Gen Z is voting on with its wallet, and voting differently than the generation before it. If you're finding this breakdown useful, drop a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps this kind of coverage reach more people who are trying to figure out where this market is actually headed, instead of where the marketing wants you to think it's headed. Let's talk root cause, because none of this happened by accident. Rolex produces roughly 1 million watches a year, a number that hasn't moved much even as global demand exploded over the last decade. For years, that scarcity was the entire engine of the brand's mystique. You couldn't just buy one, so wanting one became a whole personality. But scarcity only works as a luxury strategy when the audience underneath it stays constant. Once a new generation entered the market with different values around individuality, transparency, and what status even looks like, the scarcity playbook started working against the brand instead of for it. The waitlist that used to build desire now just as often builds resentment, and resentment is a much worse marketing asset than mystery. Factor 1. The Discovery Channel moved from boutique windows and magazine ads to Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and Rolex has historically been far more conservative about how it shows up in that space than its competitors. Factor 2. The safe investment narrative that justified the price tag for decades is now visibly cracking in the resale data, removing one of the brand's strongest non-emotional selling points. Factor 3. An entire ecosystem of microbrands and accessible legacy names built businesses specifically targeting the exact psychographic Rolex assumed it already owned. Sixth section is Rolex even noticing, because this is the part that separates a brand in genuine trouble from a brand having a temporary rough patch. Rolex has never been fast to move. It's a private family-controlled company that has built its entire century-long identity on deliberate glacial change. The same case shapes, the same conservative marketing, the same refusal to chase trends. That strategy worked beautifully when the audience buying the watch stayed roughly the same generation after generation. It's a much riskier strategy when the audience itself has fundamentally changed. There are early signs the brand knows something's shifting. Rolex has quietly increased its presence around sports sponsorships that skew toward younger, more global audiences, and its dealer network has been more visibly engaged with certified pre-owned programs than it was a decade ago, an implicit acknowledgement that the secondary market isn't going away and might as well be brought in-house. But a certified pre-owned counter and a Wimbledon sponsorship are not the same thing as actually rebuilding a brand's relationship with a generation that discovers products on a 15-second video, not a magazine spread. The gap between how Rolex still primarily communicates and how its next generation of buyers actually consumes information is still enormous, and closing that gap takes years, not a marketing quarter. Meanwhile, the brands eating into that younger audience aren't waiting around. Tudor's collaborations and social presence keep expanding. Independent watchmakers keep shipping product directly to a following they built themselves, with none of the corporate lag time. Every year Rolex spends being deliberate is another year a faster-moving competitor gets to define what the next great watch brand looks like to an entire generation on its own terms instead of Rolex's. Here's what this actually looks like for a real buyer. Imagine you're 26. You've been saving for 2 years, watching prices, reading forums, following watch accounts. You finally have enough for a steel Rolex sports model. You walk into an authorized dealer and you're told there's no stock. Maybe try back in a year. Maybe consider the grey market at a premium instead. Meanwhile, a friend of yours just posted a watch from a 2-year-old independent brand that cost a fifth of the price, arrived in 6 weeks with a handwritten note from the founder, and gets more comments in your group chat than anything with a crown on it ever did. That's not a hypothetical anymore. That's the actual decision point a huge number of first-time luxury watch buyers are sitting in right now. And every time that decision lands on not Rolex, the brand loses a customer it might have kept loyal for 40 years under the old model. You're not just watching this shift from the sidelines. Here's how to actually use it if you're thinking about buying. Step 1. Stop assuming Rolex automatically means safe investment. Check current resale data for the specific reference you're considering before you buy new, because value retention now varies wildly, model to model. Step 2. Compare the used price against retail before committing to buying new. On plenty of steel sports references, a lightly worn example is meaningfully cheaper than walking into a boutique. Step 3. If the appeal is really about design and story rather than brand recognition, actually look at microbrands and independence. Read about the founder, the movement supplier, and the warranty terms before you buy, since quality varies enormously across that space. Step 4. If you want Rolex DNA without the price premium or the weight, look seriously at Tudor. Shared engineering heritage, dramatically lower service costs, and a design language that's aging better with younger buyers. Step 5. If status signaling matters to you, ask what actually reads as status to your specific circle right now, not what read as status to a different generation 10 years ago. That answer has clearly moved. Step 6. Buy the watch you'll actually enjoy wearing, not the one you think you're supposed to own. The resale data over the last 2 years is a pretty strong argument that supposed to own isn't the safe bet it used to be. Here's the bottom line. Rolex didn't lose its craftsmanship, and it isn't going anywhere. The movements are still excellent, the build quality is still excellent, and there will always be a buyer for the flagship steel sports models, no matter what the resale charts do next quarter. But the story that made Rolex the automatic, unquestioned default answer for a first luxury watch purchase is being rewritten in real time by a generation that shops differently, discovers brands differently, and defines status differently. Scarcity used to be the whole strategy. Now it's just one ingredient competing against transparency, story, design individuality, and a resale market that no longer plays along automatically. The brand that wins the next 20 years of this market isn't necessarily the one with the longest history or the most recognizable logo. It's the one that actually listens to this shift instead of betting the entire playbook on scarcity working forever, the way it always used to. Are you Team Rolex, Team Tudor, or Team some microbrand you've never heard of yet? Tell me what's actually on your wrist in the comments. And if this kind of market breakdown is useful to you, like and subscribe for more.